In the upscale Newton district of suburban Boston, a brand new colonial-style house stood in a quiet residential area. With its white exterior walls and deep green shutters, the home was graced by a beautifully maintained lawn. As Rachel Thompson signed the mortgage papers for this house perched on a hill overlooking Crystal Lake, her hand trembled slightly. Finally, I can repay my parents for everything they've done. Rachel Thompson, the marketing director at a pharmaceutical company, felt relief wash over her as she stood in her smart gray suit. This new home, purchased with savings she'd desperately accumulated over 10 years combined with a mortgage, represented the culmination of years of sacrifice. She had lived frugally, always mindful of her parents' retirement, and now her efforts were about to bear fruit. Rachel still remembered the conversation she'd overheard between her parents as their retirement approached. "I wonder if we'll grow old in this old apartment," her mother had said. "Well, the children have their own lives to live," her father had replied. The loneliness in her mother's voice that day had spurred Rachel forward. She worked overtime, earned promotions, and gradually built up her savings. While her colleagues bought luxury brand bags, Rachel chose a modest lifestyle. Her father, David, had just retired from his position as a high school teacher. Known for his strict teaching style, he had recently discovered social media and posted regularly. Though he maintained traces of his dignified teacher persona, Rachel found his occasional childlike expressions endearing. Her mother, Linda, had recently retired from her position as a library curator. While still maintaining her meticulous nature that had served her well in organizing books, she had begun showing a more sociable and flamboyant side in retirement. She valued her neighborhood relationships and made it a daily routine to host tea parties for neighbors on weekends. "What a lovely house, Rachel. But are you going to live alone in such a big house?" At her mother's casual comment, Rachel gave an evasive answer. True, a house with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms was too large for her alone. But she believed this size was necessary in case her parents needed help in the future. Just then, her smartphone rang. It was a message from her sister Jessica. Her sister, a housewife, had recently declared her intention to become a social media influencer. Rachel felt something off about the perfect housewife life her sister posted about daily. "Sis, you're really something else. Being able to buy a house like this. It's absolutely impossible for us." Rachel caught the sarcasm hidden behind those words. Her sister's husband Brian worked in real estate but performed below average. She had once glimpsed her sister dropping his credit card bill, evidence of his show-off nature and tendency toward debt. Rachel stood in the living room of her new home, gazing out at the yard through the large windows. The open-concept kitchen and living room, the family room with a fireplace, and the 2-car garage, all of these were for her parents' comfortable retirement. On the surface, her parents were grateful for their daughter's filial piety. But their occasional attitude of taking it for granted left Rachel with mixed feelings. Her sister and brother-in-law were the same. No one seemed to understand the weight behind the words, "Of course she can, she's the older sister." The monthly mortgage payment of $2,000, with $250,000 remaining on the loan, was no light burden. It meant continuing a life of early mornings, late nights, and working weekends without complaint. But when she thought of her parents' happy faces, she knew this choice couldn't be wrong. That day, she returned home later than usual. After a lengthy pharmaceutical company presentation that ran overtime, Rachel parked her car in front of her house just after 8 in the evening. She had given a 3-hour presentation on new drug market strategies to the management team and was exhausted both mentally and physically. Such fatigue should be soothed once she got home, but as she was about to step out of her car, something felt off. Several unfamiliar luxury cars were parked in front of her house. A brand new BMW SUV, a Mercedes sedan, and even a sleek black Porsche. The usually quiet upscale neighborhood was filled with cheerful voices and laughter drifting from somewhere, and warm light spilled from the house. Even the second-floor bedrooms were brightly lit, making the house glow like a hotel. No way. Her hands shook as she took out her smartphone to check her mother's Instagram. Scrolling through the screen, she found recently posted photos. A dining table laden with luxurious dishes. An expensive catering spread from legal seafoods, complete with lobster, caviar, and foie gras. A new Italian luxury sofa set. And her parents smiling alongside her sister and brother-in-law. A high-end catering truck was parked at the entrance, with staff in white aprons bustling in and out. Unfamiliar luxury garden furniture adorned the yard, complete with small illuminations creating a resort hotel atmosphere. Her mother's beloved garden plants from the previous week appeared to have been moved somewhere else. With trembling hands, she inserted her key. Her heart was pounding like a drum. Opening the front door, she found the shoe rack crammed with unfamiliar designer heels and dress shoes. The red soles of Christian Louboutin shoes gleamed eerily under the fluorescent light. From the living room came the clinking of champagne glasses and lively conversation. Rachel momentarily doubted whether this was really her house. Taking a deep breath and straightening her suit jacket collar, she stepped into the living room. "Oh. Rachel?" At her mother Linda's voice, the party's commotion briefly stopped. About 20 unfamiliar faces turned to stare at Rachel all at once. Under the gazes of guests dressed in luxury brand dresses and suits, Rachel suddenly felt her work clothes seemed cheap. The renovated living room was cramped with luxury brand sofa sets, dining tables, and art pieces she often saw in catalogs. The display cabinet for her mother's precious doll collection, which was supposed to be in her parents' bedroom, was nowhere to be found. "Did our secret party get found out?" Her mother's voice sounded somewhat amused. While gently swirling her champagne glass, she continued. Rachel felt dizzy watching the golden bubbles swirling in the glass. "Mrs. Wilson from next door is here too. And several of Brian's clients, they're all such wonderful people." "Why, didn't you tell me?" Rachel's voice trembled slightly. Her throat felt hot, making it difficult to force out the words. "Because you're such a boring person, aren't you, sis?" Jessica, wearing a cocktail dress, declared while tilting her glass. Dressed in a new Chanel dress, her sister was behaving as if she were the lady of the house. Beside her, Brian wore a meaningful smile. His watch was from a luxury brand she'd seen in a TV commercial just last month. We didn't want to ruin the party after all. Even her father David spoke as if it were natural. He had apparently been taking photos of the party with his smartphone until just now. Those photos were probably being uploaded to social media right now. "Besides, we have good news," her mother continued happily. Her expression, cheeks flushed from champagne, showed a youthful vitality that had returned. "We've decided to live with your sister and her husband." It's more fun having young people around, right? After all, you weren't planning to live here, were you? At those words, Rachel's heart froze. She could barely stand. A sense of emptiness washed over her, as if her 10 years of effort and frugality, her consideration for her parents, had all been for nothing. With heavy steps, she headed upstairs to check what was supposed to have been her room. The moment she opened the door, she was confronted by a mountain of carelessly stacked cardboard boxes. Cleaning supplies and old furniture were scattered about, with her sister's brand-name bags tossed in between. Rachel's vision blurred at the sight of the room transformed into a storage space. Near the window, her mother's old sewing machine, her father's teaching textbooks, and old family photos lay covered in dust. "A storage room is enough for you, right?" Her sister's voice from behind sounded somehow triumphant. The sweet scent of perfume stung Rachel's nose. "After all, you weren't planning to live here, were you?" Fighting back tears that threatened to roll down her cheeks, Rachel bit her lip. Her tightly clenched fists were so white, it was as if the word betrayal had been carved into the back of her hands. As she wiped her tears with her suit sleeve, her makeup smeared. From downstairs, the party's noise continued unabated. The clinking of champagne glasses. Someone's shrill laughter. And the voices of her parents and sister's family excited about their new furniture. Her mother's proud talk about plans for their new life, and the guests' agreeing voices drifted up the stairs. Rachel silently descended the stairs and headed for the entrance. No one tried to stop her. Rather, the party's commotion seemed to grow even louder, as if an unwanted presence had departed. The night wind struck her cheeks. After getting into her car, Rachel stared for a long time at her brightly lit home reflected in the rearview mirror. The emotion in her eyes was no longer sadness. A quiet anger and icy coldness filled her heart. "You'll be the ones who regret this," Rachel whispered softly as she started the engine. Then, leaving behind the sound of an engine breaking the quiet of the upscale residential area, her car disappeared into the darkness. A week later, Rachel was staring intently at her laptop screen. It displayed her family's credit card statements. Using the analytical skills she had honed as a pharmaceutical company marketing director, she had investigated the numbers in between her work hours, and they put a cold light in her eyes. The mortgage statement showing the payments she continued to make, working from 6 in the morning until late at night. The monthly $2,000 payment was reliably withdrawn from her salary. Meanwhile, her family's wasteful spending grew day by day. "I can't believe this, how did it come to this?" Charges from the luxury furniture store, $50,000. Italian luxury sofa sets, designer brand dining tables, and even antique-style lighting fixtures chosen by her mother. Everything had been purchased without consulting her. The furniture store's website even featured review photos of her mother and sister smiling, with comments about the beginning of a wonderful new life. There's more. Bills from the BMW dealership. A new car for her father, $45,000. A gray sedan, the latest model. A new car for her sister and brother-in-law, $38,000. A pure white SUV, loaded with options. Both with no down payment loans. Despite Rachel's concerns about, "Is the credit score okay?" her father had proudly taken photos with the keys. Landscaping estimate, $20,000. signed by the luxury landscaping company her mother had supposedly hired. Her mother's words, "Mrs. Wilson next door uses the same company," now rang with irony. The lawn had been replaced, new plantings installed, and evening lighting added. The garden was no longer the home garden she knew. Just the catering for weekend parties costs $3,000. How much will these parties cost, held almost every week? The notifications arriving on her smartphone were all about new expenditures. Charges from luxury brand stores, payments for expensive restaurants, spa and aesthetic treatment fees. Her mother and sister's girls' outings generated thousands of dollars in expenses each time. The wasteful spending showed no signs of stopping. At this rate, bankruptcy is just a matter of time. Rachel stood up and looked down at the city from her office window. Boston's skyscrapers gleamed in the setting sun. On her desk lay opened emails from 3 real estate agents, all emphasizing the current real estate market's vigor. "Ms. Thompson, regarding your proposal. The current suburban Boston real estate market is extremely active. Particularly in your Newton district, demand from young families is very high due to the excellent educational environment. We have assessed your home's current market value at approximately $800,000. Purchase price was $650,000. Remaining mortgage was $250,000. Due to Boston's real estate market boom, she could expect a profit of $150,000 from the sale." Rachel punched numbers into her calculator, checking the calculations multiple times. She could also recover her savings used for the down payment. Perfect. Both the timing and the amount. Rachel made an appointment with the real estate agent. Secret sale procedures. The young real estate agent, popular on social media, perfectly understood her requirements. "This is quite the revenge," the agent smiled quietly. Multiple buyers came forward, and it finally sold for $850,000. The transfer period was just 2 weeks. "In this area, it might have sold for even more," the agent said, but Rachel shook her head. "I have urgent circumstances." During this time, her family's wasteful spending continued. Her father bought a new golf set and began frequenting an expensive golf club on weekends. Her mother acquired an annual membership at a luxury spa, bragging to the neighborhood ladies that it was an investment in staying young. Her sister kept buying new brand name bags, never forgetting to add the hashtag New Life with each social media post. Her sister's words, "It's the best when everyone's jealous," lingered in Rachel's ears. The real new life starts now. Rachel's phone rang. A message from the new owners. She nodded with satisfaction at the text displayed on the screen. "Please vacate within 1 month. Please remove all new furniture. Costs for necessary restoration will be deducted from the security deposit as penalties. Regarding the equipment installed during landscaping work." Back at her office, Rachel ignored the call history from her mother while making a viewing appointment for a new high-rise apartment. A corner unit on the top floor overlooking Boston's financial district. She planned to pay the down payment with funds she had been saving for her family. "The view, the facilities, everything is perfect," said the real estate agent, and Rachel showed her first genuine smile. In her office at dusk, Rachel sipped coffee while staring at her smartphone screen. Her mother's Instagram still showed photos of lavish parties. Among the posts was her sister proudly displaying a supposedly new Hermes bag. Just a little longer, until everything ends. Rachel smiled quietly. Tomorrow morning, the notice would arrive from the real estate agent to her family. The eviction request from the new owners. Instructions to remove the furniture. And the bill for restoration. She imagined in her mind the moment her family's expressions would freeze, caught up in their wasteful spending. The phone started ringing. Father, mother, sister, and her sister's husband. Calls coming in with panicked manner. While watching the names displayed, Rachel rejected each call one by one. There was no longer any trace of sadness in her expression. In the upscale residential area of Newton District, shrouded in morning mist, David's angry voice shattered the silence. What? Selling it without permission. Certified letters scattered across the living room. Eviction notice from the new owners. And the estimate for restoration. Father David's hands trembled, his face turning pale. Mother Linda collapsed onto the luxury sofa, crying without caring that her makeup was running. It's so embarrassing, what should I tell the neighbors? The new home she had bragged about to her spa friends. The regular guests at the weekly parties. When she thought about having to report to all of them, her mother choked on her words. Sister Jessica clutched the keys to her new BMW, clinging to her husband Brian's arm. Their expressions showed bewilderment, still unable to accept reality. How could Big Sister do something so terrible? Brian couldn't hide his anxiety. As a real estate salesman, he was about to lose the connections with potential clients he should have gained from living in this upscale residential area. I'll consult a lawyer. This is illegal. As her mother's scream echoed, the front door opened. Rachel appeared quietly in her suit. Having waited for this moment in her top-floor office, she now looked down at her family with a calm expression. Illegal? The mortgage is in my name. I'm the homeowner. All rights to sell belong to me. But we're family. How could you? Her father's voice trembled. There was no trace left of the dignified former teacher. Family? Did you really think that? Rachel pointed at her room that had been turned into storage. My 10 years of savings. Monthly mortgage payments. Everything I earned working desperately, what did you think it was? That's natural filial piety. At her mother's words, Rachel laughed coldly. Filial piety is natural? Then look at this. Credit card statements spread on the table. Numerous expensive purchases. Weekly party expenses. New car loans. All expenditures were marked in red. Nearly $150,000 in spending in just 1 month. Is this natural? You spent more than half my annual income in a month. But this was for our new life. Rachel cut off her sister's words. New life? You mean the fake life you show off on social media? Taking out her smartphone, she displayed her mother and sister's Instagram posts one after another. The numerous glamorous posts now seemed empty and hollow. This is who you really are. A pretentious family living luxuriously on someone else's wallet. The first-floor living room was overflowing with luxury furniture. Cushions still with their price tags attached, vases with price stickers not yet removed. Everything told the story of this family's recklessness. But where should we go? Her sister's voice trembled. Her hands clutching her luxury brand bag shook with anxiety. That's your problem. Figure out how to pay for your luxury car loans and credit card bills yourself. Wait. Can't we talk about this? We're family. Rachel turned her back on her mother's pleading voice. Only the storage room is left. As she climbed the stairs, Rachel left with final words. But you're not even worth putting in storage. In what was once her room, Rachel gazed out the window. The garden was still littered with party debris. Broken champagne glasses. Trampled lawn. Everything told the story of this month's frenzy. Downstairs, the voices of her family confronting reality echoed. Desperate calls to credit card companies. Frantic phone calls to real estate agents. And the sound of social media accounts being made private one after another. Rachel's smartphone kept ringing. Inquiries from neighbors. Messages from her mother's friends. And curious eyes from her sister's social media followers. Their glamorous facade of a life was beginning to crumble with a crash. 3 months later, Rachel was basking in the morning sun in her sunroom, morning coffee in hand. A promotion at the pharmaceutical company and a new life. Everything marked a fresh start for her. I wonder if this really was the right thing to do. As she browsed the newspaper over coffee, a familiar real estate advertisement caught her eye in a corner of the local paper. An upscale residential area in Newton District. A property right next to the house she had once purchased. The catchphrase, "Experience the charm of luxury living at an accessible price," now rang with irony. An old apartment in the suburbs. The modest complex where Rachel herself had lived for 10 years. Her parents and sister's family had started their new life there. 5 people living shoulder to shoulder in a cramped apartment. Her once sociable mother had become quite reclusive. Her luxury spa membership was cancelled, and the lavish parties were no more. Her Instagram account was deleted, and contact with acquaintances had become sparse. Father David had even started working night shift part-time jobs to repay debts. The luxury car was sold, and the new golf set was pawned. He never posted on social media again and stopped attending alumni reunions with his former students. The changes in her sister's family were even more dramatic. The new car was returned, and brand items were sold. Brian, the real estate agent, lost credibility in the luxury housing market and his performance plummeted. The couple's relationship deteriorated day by day. All of her sister's social media accounts, where she had dreamed of being an influencer, disappeared, leaving only unkind rumors among her followers. The story of what people called the Thompson family's fall had become a quiet topic of conversation in the community. Various rumors circulated among old acquaintances. Sympathetic eyes toward the parents, cold evaluations of her sister and brother-in-law, and support for Rachel. Everything was the result of their choices. A letter arrived at Rachel's office. A handwritten letter from her mother. Words of apology written in shaking handwriting. "We took your love for granted. Drowning in vanity and pretense, we lost what was truly important. We don't ask for forgiveness. We just, now truly realize the magnitude of your presence in our lives." After reading the letter, Rachel gazed out the window. The Charles River continued to flow through the city unchanged. The morning sun reflecting off the high-rise buildings announced the start of a new day. I can't forgive them. But... Taking her smartphone, Rachel dialed a number she had hesitated over for a long time. The phone rang. Hello, Rachel? Her mother's voice trembled. Mom, if you'd like, on Christmas Day. She could hear her mother's small sob on the other end of the line. The view from her high-rise apartment window was beautiful today too. The morning bustle spread through the city as a new day was about to begin. Rachel smiled quietly. Love is never something to be taken for granted. Vanity and pretense corrode the heart. And it takes a long time to regain lost trust. Still, everyone has the courage to take a new step forward. 1 month until Christmas. The first snow of the season had begun to fall on Boston.